Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 46 here in the Systematic Factory. I've been messing around with some automation stuff, and I think I have this how I want it to be. The rockets come in, and when they land, they set off two sensors. There's this one, and then there's this one. So if we look at this, this sends a green signal when there's a rocket on the platform. This one is connected to the port on the rocket that says send a green signal when rad vault storage is full. So this is what we had before. That goes through this gate and it sends a green signal when we need rad vaults. What I changed with that is the rad vaults come up here. Now at the end of the line, any extra ones get sent back here and I just shoot them down into the neutronium. That way I don't have to worry about them bouncing around causing any problem. The new part of the automation is this line also goes off this way and down here into this system. So there's a filter gate, there's a memory output, there's a reset counter, or I'm sorry, there's a signal counter that we reset, and there is a line that goes back to this port, which tells the rocket to launch. So what this is doing is the memory toggle is it's like a latch where we turn it on and then we turn it back off. And the reset port with the filter just makes it so that basically this works where if we send a signal in that's green, it quick sends a pulse that is green, and then it stays red until this signal goes red and then green again, and then it pulses again. So that is how we reset the signal counter here at the reset counter option. This sensor here is a cycle sensor that once every cycle for a brief period, it sends a green signal. So a green signal gets sent to here. This goes and connects to the top of both of these signal counters. So that tells us that it's basically counting the number of cycles since this counter went off. So the idea here is when a rocket lands, it resets the whole system, so it sets this to 0, and this is locked until the next time a rocket lands. This will count the number of cycles, and 2 cycles later, it will send a green signal telling the rocket to launch again. 2 cycles, I think we could probably do it with just 1, but I'm doing 2 because that way I don't have to worry about it. So in those 2 cycles, the rocket comes in, duplicates have time to reload everything inside the rocket, and the storage gets emptied because we have our solid rocket port unloader here, which is now cooled so that it stays cool and doesn't overheat. Everything from the rockets gets emptied out through there, and it gets dropped down here just like it should into our system that picks it up and stores it. And so this connects to both of these rocket bays. So these two kind of work in concert together. They get emptied out, and then so by the time we want to launch the rocket again, the cargo bay is empty and everything is restocked. And when we send the signal to launch, it asks for the pilot to go to the launch pad, and it makes sure everybody else is out of the rocket. And then it won't launch until there's nobody else in. That way we can't accidentally be sending somebody off into space that isn't supposed to be there. That means that the rocket can continually go out, mine, come back, empty its cargo, reload on supplies, and go out again. So with this set up, I can have an automatic mining rocket that is recharged using the rad bolts, because that also takes very brief time. So by the time the 2 cycle counter's over, it's recharged. And we can go and do it forever. And so what I'm going to be working on today is taking this system and installing it 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. And then we're going to have, well, the last one I'm probably going to leave empty for this module for now. I may actually just do 4 of these bays, and then I'll leave these 2 for us to do other rockets, because we do have some other things we want to do with rockets. But I'm going to be copying this over to the first 3 bays here and make it so they're all set up. We're going to be building some new rockets. We're going to be getting some new pilots in those rockets, and we're going to have them start mining in the local areas to get us all the resources that we could ever use. So I had a pretty significant problem occur that I need to address before I can continue working on my rockets like I want to. And that is here in our liquid nuclear waste storage. So I've actually reloaded a save to come back to find in my autosave to figure out when this occurred, because I was actually probably 5 or 6 cycles ahead of this, and I noticed that it had happened. The issue is it happened right as we were doing the autosave, which is neat because I can show you, but also it's going to make it hard to find a time where I can actually fix it. So first, let's see what's going on here. If you noticed, the rad bolt generator fired off a rad bolt, and the reflector picked it up. When a rad bolt hits a reflector like this, or any source where the rad bolt is converted or moved, there's a chance that it will create a tiny bit of liquid nuclear waste. So because this is tucked in here, just so happens that it created a tiny little bit of liquid nuclear waste, which would normally not be a problem. I'd just mop it up and I'd move on with my day. But because of this storage and the fact that we have probably 1,000 cycles worth of liquid nuclear waste stored here, that tiny little bit allowed it to move through this airflow tile and here to get into it. That means that we now have we had 4 million kilograms. We now have 1.7 million here, 1.99 million here, and 2 million here. And that's just going to continue to flow out, because now it's going to go through here. It's going to split between these two and try to balance itself out. And that's going to flood down here. It's going to flood out of this room. It's going to flood down here. All very big problems that we normally, when I have an issue where it's something I messed up, I try my best to continue to play, get it fixed, and frankly that's why I'm on cycle 5700, because it takes a lot of time to fix the problems that you have sometimes. But this one, I don't think there's any way I can fix this. It took 1,000 cycles to pump all this into storage. It would take that long to get it back in there, and that's even with getting people in there to fix the mess in the first place. As it is, I'm going to have to load back to my previous autosave, just 5 more cycles back, and then I'm going to have to get in here to disconnect this, and then I'm going to have to set up a lead suit checkpoint so that people can get in here to do work, because there's just so much radiation. You know, a duplicate comes in here and stands inside this field, it won't be more than a couple of seconds before they're getting carted off to the hospital. So just wanted to show you what the problem is. I'm going to go back and we're going to get in here and rearrange this to prevent it from happening in the future. First step I'm doing is I want to make sure that this can't happen again. So I reloaded back to the 5 cycles before, which is the only time I can, because any save after that is just scrapped because of the issue that we were having. And then I cut the power and I removed the rad bolt generators. So the problem that is in here is that because of the high levels of radiation, if we even go in there to try to do anything, we're going to have issues with radiation. So I'm going to quickly put in a wall of lead here to prevent that radiation from getting out and blocking it, basically making it so our duplicates can't go stand in that space. And then after that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out spaces here and here, and then we're going to move the rad bolt reflectors down so that they can be farther away. This one, if I put it down there, this one, I'm concerned if I put it here, then if it makes any, it might go in. Oh, if I have 2 metal tiles like that, it should be fine. So I think that's what we'll try to do. And then we'll put back the reflector here, farther out, that we can use to send it on out. So let's just see, once we get these put in and we get those spaces done, if that will work. It should go diagonally through there just fine. The lead should block enough of the radiation that I don't need to worry about it getting out too much. And because these will both be solid tiles like that, and there'll be a vacuum gap, or not a vacuum gap, but a gas gap in between them, then even if we get liquid here, it can't flow into here, and the gas can't escape. So that should be perfectly fine for us to put that there. This one we'll have to put here. We still need to have a diagonal space for the Radbolt reflectors to, or the Radbolt generators to shoot out to the reflectors. So that'll be fine. So this will be a reflector here shooting upwards. This will be one shooting downwards, which means we need another one. And this one has to line up over here. We need the green section of it to be downwards so that we can aim that to go out through that gap. We'll put that there. We'll put one up here. We'll put one down here. And that should fix our problem. So maybe I don't need to make a lead suit checkpoint after all. In the future, I might do it just so that I can do some more stuff with our Radbolts. But they should be safe here. As long as they don't go here, they're fine. They're not absorbing any radiation actually at all from it because the radiation is being blocked completely. That's pretty excellent. So we'll put this in. They have to get down here to get these two, and that's fine because it's still, the gap will be small enough they can't get in there. We're gonna have a piece of Maverick rock in there that's gonna bug me. I might go in to get that. We'll see. I had to try a bunch of different things here just to get everything just right, but I did learn a lot. So one thing is these Radbolt generators can't fire through a corner if it's more than 2 blocks or more than a block. So I tried having this here with a 2-block gap in between, and it would just dissipate when it hit the corner here. I tried removing the blocks just to see if a distance thing could work, but it couldn't. So this has to be just 1 block away from here diagonally or it won't work. So that's why it was here and here. The problem is that because I had it here, we ended up with it being able to pool here. So this, if we get liquid nuclear waste off of it, it'll drop down. So it still won't be diagonal. What I'd like to do is have another one here so we can have 2 of them. But these Radbolt generators aren't in like that. So if I did this again, I would put the Radbolt generators standing up, and then I would have one going this way, one going this way. They could merge and go this way. But for now, I'm just going to have one, and it's fine, because I've reached the point now where I'm getting 2.673 million rads per cycle. So these fire off really, really quickly. And I have more coming in, you know, so it's not an issue for our purposes. But if I do ever do this again, I'll keep that in mind when I design this room. But so now, radiation is still contained. We can get it out. And I did decide at the last second, mostly because it just worked out that way, but another positive is this Radbolt reflector is on the same automation line. So we turn the automation on, it enables it. It'll shoot out a Radbolt. The Radbolt will go that way. When the automation line goes off, that next Radbolt won't hit this reflector because it's deactivated, and so the Radbolt just goes up and terminates here. That means that when we have a rocket that's being refueled, when it gets shut off, that means that signal stops it from any more Radbolts coming up. We'll still have a few that were in the line coming out, but it makes it so that no more will escape from that room, even if there was some that being fired. It's a little tiny difference, but it's nice. And I have this set up so that the Radbolts get reflected this way, and they terminate into the neutronium here, which is all good. So now this is all set up. This is all working. I want to copy this to here. I got to make sure that my all these settings are over as well. So this should work. So I also want to put in a switch here so that I can test this system as well. So these switches down here are for automatically firing the rockets. So if I want to just send a signal to launch the rocket even without the automation, I just turn these on and the rocket will get set to fire. The switches up here are for me to simulate that there's a rocket that needs rad bolts so that we could send a signal. So if I turn this on, it'll send that signal through. It makes this system reset. It won't actually fire off any rad bolts because there's no rocket signal coming from any of these that say that there's a rocket that has landed. So in order to fire rad bolts, this one has to go green and this one has to go green to make it fire off rad bolts. But so this system is all good. I'm happy with it. This loader unloads, or this unloader unloads both of these rockets. So everything is set up. So what we're going to do next is we're going to copy this setup and we're going to move it over and repeat it. And we're going to repeat it again. And that's it for now because this one is in the way. But so we're going to get all this built. We'll get all the automation wires connected the whole way across. We'll get everything ready to go so that we can have more rockets. And what I'd like to do is get it so that I have all of these automatically being launched and mining at different spots on the map. That way we can work towards our achievement for mining the gap. Because mining the gap requires us to do 1 million, and we're only a third of the way there. So if I have, right now I have one rocket that's been continuously repeating itself. If I can set up 6 of them, it'll go much faster. We've gotten our rockets all finished, up until rocket number 8, at least that is. Basically, we were just copying the automation over, building the rockets the same way. So now the automation is the same. I made some tweaks to it as we went just to make it all work really well. But basically, all of these rockets now are set up so that when they return, they will empty out cargo. They will allow it to be opened so that duplicants can restock the insides with oxalite and with food. And then after 2 cycles have passed, they will receive a signal for launch. And then at that point, all the non-crew will exit. The pilot, who already is going to be living inside the rocket, will then take off and go back to do his mining missions. So with these going, we can have 8 different rockets mining 8 different spots that are within range of Hazard Otto at any given time. That's actually probably a lot more than we need because we're probably going to deplete the ore fields and everything quicker than they can recharge. But, you know, it's fun to see how far we can push it. Once we get these running, the next thing will be to be working on this rocket, which will be one that we're going to be using to go to other planetoids, because our goal is to get a settlement on all 8 planetoids. Some of them won't be anything permanent. They'll just be a landing pad so that we can land there. But the goal is to get down and get landed on all of them and get mini pods set up on as many as we can. We need to do at least 5 for the achievement. So the next part of the process is the interiors of these rockets are brand new. Haven't done anything with them. We are just going to be making a carbon copy of the miner rocket. So we're going to be installing everything exactly the same. We're going to get oxalite in it. We're going to get food in it. And then it will be ready to go. We do need to worry about the plants and the temperatures and stuff. Oh, they say pressure. What's the pressure like in here? I want to see the gases. Oh, we're overpressured on oxygen. Guess that means some oxalite must have been off-gassing too much. It's the only way I can think to do it. It won't be an issue. If it's overpressure is not going to cause any problems other than the fact that he's going to have popped eardrums, which is just going to increase his stress. But because he's basically living an idyllic lifestyle in here, that's not going to be an issue. Oh, that's interesting. So he picks up that and puts it back in here. I want to turn off this for now. I can't have him doing that either, though, because that will mean that people won't be able to reload the rockets. I'll have to give that some thought. I could probably... this room needs to be a minimum of 24 tiles, and it's 28. So I could probably sacrifice a couple more tiles in here to move this over, and then put an airflow tile here, so that way the oxalate falls in a place where he can't reach it. That's probably what we'll do. Okay, so I'm going to take some time and get all our other rockets installed, get pilots trained and ready to go inside the rockets, and have our mining missions underway. We've gotten a lot more done, and we're pretty close to getting ready to send all of our rockets on missions and get pilots and set up. But the first thing I wanted to do is show you a new system I installed. So the interiors of the rockets I got all pretty much finished. We're still cleaning some of them up, finishing up a few little things. For example, I need to install these airflow tiles once I get everything swept up. I shifted everything over just a little bit so that we can put an airflow tile here. That way when the oxalate comes out, our duplicates can't reach it. That way they're not constantly putting it back into the storage. The big problem I'm having right now is that because of the water coming in was really hot, so it was heating the inside of our interior here up. And so what I did is I set up a loop for the water. So let me show you how that works out here to start. So the water, it starts off in our pool down here. We have the water coming from this pump that goes in, takes priority. When we don't have water coming from this pump, then we pull water from the other planetoid. So that way, if we do run low on water, because we're not making enough, then we have the water here getting pulled in from the other side. Then that comes up here to this part where it goes up along this loop all the way across, and then it comes up to our rockets. And it was a little complicated to get this to work how I wanted, because basically it still has to flow even if there's no rocket in place. So it comes here and it goes this way, and if there's a rocket there, then the water flows into here and it goes through the rocket, comes back out. And if not, it goes across this bridge and continues to flow to the next one. And then it keeps going. Here it gets to one that has a rocket in place. So inside, when we look at the interior of the rocket, the water comes in here, it goes through, and it flows all the way around through this radiant pipe. And then when it gets here, there's a bridge, and that bridge sends water down here to our toilet. And that means this water just kind of sits in here until we go to use it. And that means when the rocket takes off, because this is constantly flowing, it will always be completely filled with water, but this water can keep moving through the system. And then it comes through and it goes out to the next one, and the next one is set up the same way, where we have pipes through. I haven't switched them all to radiant pipes just yet. I'm working on that. But honestly, just the regular pipes will work fine. And then it will continue to go back out to the next rocket, the next rocket, the next rocket. So when they're all here, it has to flow all the way through all of them. But whenever a rocket leaves, it doesn't break the loop. It just keeps its water and uses it up. When it comes back down, it fills back up from the buffer system. After it's done, it comes down through here, and this loop goes through the base here, so it can keep it. The idea is to regulate it at the same temperature as the air that's in our living quarters. So if this water has picked up temperature from inside the rockets, it cools back down to the temperature that's inside the housing, and it gets dropped off down here. That way I don't have to have a separate cooling loop for this. It just gets cooled in here and matches our temperatures in here, because this cooling loop will cool down whatever heat we drop off in here. Then that comes down, and that water first goes in here. If we don't have enough water from our brine system, it comes through into here, and then it gets added into the water storage here. And if this is full, then it continues on down here and drops back into the tank, repeating the system. Now, in order to get this filled up, we had to pull a lot of water from the other colony, which is coming in hot, which means that all of the interiors of our rockets got pretty hot. So like if we look, this is still over, well, now it's down to 50 degrees, 58 degrees. It was over 70 degrees. So right now we are running the water through so that we can cool everything down. It's going to take a while for it to stabilize and get it all set up so that we can do it. The next thing we're going to do after that is get our rockets in so that we can get rockets in them, or pilots in them. We're going to move them out. I want to try to organize them better because right now I just have them named with temporary names. I want to see if I can make it so that the rocket here is the second one in the list and it's the second one here, just to make things easier for me. But we're going to be naming them based on where they're located and which pilot is the pilot for them. And the next thing on top of that we're doing is we put in a skill scrubber so that we can scrub away all the skills that we have for our pilots that are going in. And once they're in the rockets, they will just have the basic skills they need to pilot the rocket. That way they won't have any morale issues. We won't have any stress issues inside the rocket. So still a few things left to do before we can get them doing. But now that we're getting the temperatures to the right place, once they're there, we can get a pilot inside and then we can start the regular mining with that. In the time that we've been doing that, we got already half of our achievement finished. We're over the 500k mark. So we're getting there pretty good. I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to get pilots installed. I'm going to get these rockets mining and bringing resources back. And then we're going to start working on our next phase, which is going to other planetoids. After much tedious work, my rockets are all done, ready to go. I have them all parked right outside of Hazard Otto. I did that because I wanted to have them up there while I determined if there's any problems with them. So this one's ready, and if we look at our automation, everything is set here. They're just waiting on the counter for it to relaunch again. And this one we have set for our destination is now going to be here. So that one's all set to go. So as soon as 2 cycles goes, we'll be good to go. So let's bring in the next rocket here. We got everybody set up. We got everybody named correctly. We got everybody assigned. Basically what I did is I set them all to different tiles that are nearby for mining. So now all we're doing is waiting for the cycle counter to come by so that they launch. And once we hit two cycles on the counters, they should launch. So this one and this one should both launch when this cycle is over, which is coming up any second. Okay, so let's check out. Oh, that one's already going. So is that one. Excellent. And these should have counted to another one. Looks like I don't have these set correctly. And this is why we're testing everything. Ooh, we had a building melt down here. What did we have melt? I didn't see it. Might have been... Make sure it wasn't automation wires. Liquid bridge. Okay, so our liquid bridges for up here were not sustainable. So I knew that that might be an issue because I built them with different materials because I was low at the time and then I never got around to fixing it. So we'll probably have to go through and check. Yep, this is another one. Ceramic should do the job. So we'll just have to go through and change these out. Ceramic, ceramic, ceramic. But this is why we go through and test everything as we go, so that we don't run into problems later on when we're not ready to handle them. So probably this is probably going to be the same the whole way across. But so I have basically the whole area is just mining like crazy at the moment. So then when things come back in, they're going to get handled. So another thing I want to set up is right now the way they're handled is that everything's just dropped down and it's brought over and it's shunted away to the storage inside of our base. What I want to do going forward is set up some stuff here to organize it. And so when refined carbon comes back in, we can have a conveyor rail that runs it straight down here and puts it where we need it for our diamond construction and things like that. And then items that we're going to need over on the other colony for production of things like supercoolant or whatever, we can ship that back to where it needs to go. But we essentially have full-on automated asteroid mining pretty well handled. These rockets are going to do it, and do it rather quickly. Each time they go through, they're going to bring in 12 tons. Once we have a little more support set up for them, they'll do it even better, but we're pretty much ready to go. What do I have set here for deconstruction? Oh, because it's the... I'm changing them over to ceramic. I forgot that it said deconstruct when you're swapping the material. But so now we just need to watch and let all of our rockets do their mining. And when they're done, we will have finished, you know, after a few cycles, or a few trips, I should say, rather, we'll have finished mining the gap, because we only have 470,000 to go. Each one of them does 12,000 every time they go. And so it's not going to be too long. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this episode, and we will see you in the next one.